Hey everybody, we're back. It's Possibilities with Monique DeMeo. I'm excited to have with us today Megan Crokos. She is a rock star and badass from my alma mater, Fordham, but I'll get to that in a minute. Here's a little bit about Megan. She holds the position of Senior Vice President of Product and Fragrance Development at Bath and Body Works. Who doesn't love Bath and Body Works? Oh my God. In this role, she spearheads fragrance ideation and formulates high-level strategies for personal care and home products, leading the creation of more than 1,800 new SKUs annually. Megan's journey at Bath and Body Works began in 2007 when she assumed the role of Director of Creative Product Innovations. Her strong leadership and contributions led her to promotion to Assistant Vice President in 2009. In 2012, her responsibilities expanded further as she took charge of creative fragrance and innovations within product development. Her ascent continued in 2013 when she was promoted to VP and culminated in her elevation to SVP in 2019. In recognition of her talents and accomplishments, Megan was honored as the Cosmetic Executive Woman Top Talent Award in 2019, and in the same year became a member of Chief, an exclusive network dedicated to connecting and empowering women leaders. In 2022, she was celebrated as the Women in Flavors and Fragrance Commerce Gala honoree. That's a mouthful, but very impressive. Before her tenure at Bath and Body Works, Megan amassed over 2 decades of experience in creating and marketing a wide range of products, including color cosmetics, facial skincare, fragrant body care, and home products, while working with prestigious brands like Estee Lauder, Clinique, MAC, Jo Malone, La Mer, L'Oréal Lancôme, Calvin Klein Beauty, and Revlon. Her career began at the ground level, and through her leadership, she rose to the position of Executive Director of Product Global Development. Megan's academic achievements include earning an MBA from Fordham University in New York City, where she graduated magna cum laude. She also holds a Bachelor of Arts degree from the American College in London, England, where she graduated. In her personal life, Megan, alongside her husband Alexander, great name, resides in New Jersey with their rescue greyhound, Shay. Their daughters, Ava and Ariana, have embarked on their own professional journeys, with Ava working in economics and Ariana pursuing a career in graphic design in New York. Welcome, Megan.
Thank you. Thank you, Monique. It's a pleasure to see you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here today.
Awesome. So your ears might have been burning because we just got back. I did a quick session on the imposter syndrome, and I talked about Ava
Oh,
and how she and we were at this Fordham Summit of Women's event a couple of weeks ago, and how she just completely, it was like the keynote speaker, when she asked the keynote speaker, did you ever have imposter syndrome? The look on that woman's face was priceless. And I talk about you and Ava being at the event and how she met this woman, and it was like this idea of imposter syndrome, and the answer that she got. It was just priceless. And I just thought, wow, this woman is not only a badass in the world, but she is raising a badass daughter as well. And that was pretty impressive. So I wanted to acknowledge that. And it's good when mamas can impact their daughters in that way.
absolutely. And I can tell you, Monique, she was nervous to ask the question. Her heart was pounding. She's like, I don't know if I should. Should I? And I said, yes. Just go for it. Ask the question. And I think the audience reaction to the question, I kind of looked around and you saw a lot of sighs, you saw a lot of nods, you saw a lot of, so thank you. I think for her, it was such a wonderful moment in overcoming that nervousness to speak up in front of a big room, and it worked out very well.
It did work out well. And I made a point of going over to her and saying, great question. Good. I'm so happy that you had the courage to ask it and keep doing what you're doing. And I think she appreciated that because she was like, oh, okay.
Absolutely. I think she was stunned that her question got, the positive response that it did.
Absolutely. So, I mean, that's such a great segue and a great story to our next question, which is, this idea of balancing our careers and our businesses and our goals and being mamas. And so, I remember when I met you, you told me the story about going to, we both went to school for our MBAs at night and kind of while doing other things, and you having the big mama belly. So I want you to take the audience back to those moments and those memories of balancing the two.
So, no, thank you. I think when I look back at my life, I've always done two things. I got my first sort of part-time job when I was age 13. So I was, working and going to school. Through all of that, before I even started my MBA at night, I volunteered at NYU Hospital. I hosted something called Tuesday Night Beauty because I remember going into NYU and saying, I'm not sure how I can contribute, but I want to contribute. And so the gentleman and I had this whole dialogue around, what do you do? What are your interests? And I said, well, maybe I can host this Tuesday Night Beauty for the terminally ill patients just to kind of have them feel something special, every single week. So we talked about beauty trends and I talked about products that they might be interested in. And I think one of the favorite nights that we did is, we hosted a little sort of escape to the Caribbean one February night when it was just snowing outside and so cold. And we played beautiful music. And, I think at that night, I was just talking about the importance of, hand cream and SPF and things. And it was wonderful, wonderful. I stopped that when I started my MBA part-time at night and I think this is one of the things we always have to remember. We can do many things. We can't do all things. And so I was devastated to leave these patients that were in the hospital and the director of the volunteer service, he's like, yours has been so popular. I said, I'm so sorry, but I know I can't dedicate enough to that and work full time and get my MBA part-time at night. So I said, I have to pause this. If I'm able to come back one day, I will, but I have to pull the plug on one thing. So started my MBA part-time at night. Within weeks, I was engaged. I had dated my boyfriend for about 4+ years at that point. And he, I have to say, is my husband now, always has been one of my biggest supporters. There were times, going to school part-time at night, and I was thinking, I cannot finish it. I cannot do all this. I cannot work, and try to build my career and go to school at night and get good grades and get something out of this education and be able to come back and apply it. I cannot do all that. And he just kind of paced me out little chunks at a time saying, you can, you can. And by luck and just the universe working, my very first class, the very first night at Fordham, I met a woman who became ultimately one of my best friends. She's Ava's godmother, and she and I became our own support groups. I was a marketing major. She was a finance major, but we kept each other going and supported each other throughout this whole thing. So, and to your point, by the time I finished my MBA, I was 7 or 8 months pregnant with Ava. And so, through that whole process, working full time, planning my wedding, getting married, and then, finishing my MBA pregnant with Ava, it was a lot. But I think if we can have wonderful support groups, whether they know they're a support group or not, sometimes people don't even realize they're your support group. Having that is really, really helpful and imperative to being able to get through what you can in a good way.
Right. Yeah, no, I think we are on total alignment there. In my book, I talk about you can have you can have it all. You just can't have it all at the same time. And I think that's sort of what you're expressing. Looking back and now with hindsight, you see how many things you were able to do and how many things you're still able to do, and raising two well-adjusted, wonderful girls while you were building a career is no small feat. What do you think were the success factors in you being able to do that?
I'm also a prepper, a planner. I'm organized. I try to have everything in your life be strategic. I really believe that you're strategic maybe from kindergarten on. You're planning your day, you're planning things, you're whether you're allowed to pick out what you're wearing or you wore a uniform, even simple things, what's the first thing you're going to eat out of your lunchbox or your cafeteria food. I think that strategy comes in every single day. And I think that you have to prep and plan and be very, very organized. So I think that as I was trying to balance everything and working, I also made a huge effort to make sure I was with my kids in a quality way every moment I could be. Even it was, we're going to the grocery store, girls, I took them on every errand. I volunteered for as many volunteering things at school. I was the mystery reader. I was the person on the bus trying to keep the kids organized as they went to the Museum of Natural History, which is a big feat, right? That is so hard. Oh my goodness, that is hard. Little tiny kids in a big museum, you know, being a chaperone when they're going to Broadway shows and things like that. I think if you have to plan and make the effort to do those things. And I'll tell you a wonderful story that I just heard this past summer from one of my former coworkers at Estee Lauder on the Clinique brand. When I first met her, she was, a couple years out of college, and my kids were maybe 2 and 3 at the time. And I guess I talked about my kids a lot, periodically brought them in on the appropriate days. I tried to lead by example of balancing work and life. And she said to me, I set up a touch base with her recently, and I said, I want to pick your brains on a couple of things. And I hadn't seen her in maybe 15, 20 years. And she said to me, she's like, Megan, I have to tell you something right away. She's like, my whole life, all I wanted to do was be a career person. I never thought about getting married. I never thought about having kids. All I wanted to do is have a rich and successful career. She's like, but then I met you, and I thought, and I saw somebody who was having a good career, being a nice person, being able to be married and have kids. She's like, so I want to show you something. And she called her 2 kids over, and she's like, these are my kids. And I got married. And I literally, Monique, that was my response too. I could have gone my whole life without hearing that story. And when I heard that story, I know. So you never know who you're influencing. You never know what you're doing could have a positive or negative impact on someone. So I think when you plan and you prep and you're structured and you're organized and you try to do the right thing and you try to be a good person, those things not only pay off in spades for yourself, but I'm learning now they can help other people as well too, which to me, that's unbelievably gratifying.
Oh my God, that's it. And it's the thing that I'm hearing more than anything. It's not only what you said, it's what you did.
Yes, yes.
And I feel like that, that is the best compliment you can get from someone is that you emulated a behavior, or you emulated a thought process, or you got them thinking about something, not because of what you said, but what you were doing in front of them. So you were leading by example. And I think that's really quite something.
No, thank you. Thank you. And I think sometimes you're doing it and you don't realize you're doing it. But I also think you do have to focus on, being a good leader and a good person, and cultivating a good culture and all those things. I do think it does take an effort and a thought to do that as well.
Oh, absolutely. It has to be intentional. So that's actually a great segue to my next question, which is, what in terms of women in your industry, tell us a little bit about your journey. Was in your industry, was it also very male dominated as mine was, or was it more, there were more women, and how was the culture? Because at a certain point, I remembered women not being terribly supportive of other women coming up through the ranks. I don't know if you, I think we have some stories.
Agree, agree. We could write a nice book. I think it's a little bit of a roller coaster. You're going to find supportive, and you're going to find people that you don't ever want to emulate. My first sort of beauty industry job before it was corporate is I worked at the Revlon counter at B. Altman's, and
Be
it was,
almonds. I
I
love
know,
be
it was
almonds.
amazing. It was amazing. What a grand department store. And the reason I mention it is that there were women there who had worked there for decades, that had these wonderful stories of, cosmetics in the 1950s, and what it was like. And I adored these women. And I was, 22, 23, right out of college, supporting myself. I couldn't find my ultimate job right away, and thought, I'm going to just surround myself in the beauty world. And so got the job there. I was pretty quickly promoted to counter manager and bay director. So then all of a sudden, I was above these women, but they were so respectful to me. I think they knew, they saw something good, and they treated me very well. They could have easily not. They could have easily thought, who is this young person coming in and now leading us? But I think there was such a huge mutual respect, mainly for me. But I think they also hopefully could see that I was a kind person and a hard worker, and that I would treat them with ultimate respect. My first corporate job, this is like the late 1980s. So remember that the term glass ceiling was not too long before that. So there were a lot of women in leadership when I finally got my first corporate job that I thought to myself, there's a behavior I don't want to emulate. There's a behavior that doesn't feel good. There's a behavior that deep in my heart, I know there's another way. So I learned just as much from the people that I didn't want to be like as the people that I did want to be like. So I think that was something. And even a decade or 15 plus years into that, I still came across people that didn't understand that, teams are made up of people, women and men have lives and challenges and all sorts of other things that they're working on. And you have to remember that, we're not numbers or just, names in boxes. There's things around us. So yeah, I tell my team I was fortunate enough to see both, because I do think you can learn just as much from the negative as you can from the very positive.
Well, I'm sure. Yeah, that's impressive. That's really impressive. I mean, good for you that you have that lens. I think going through it, how did you navigate? Look, I in my book, I'm pretty clear about not having mentors and role models that I could work work with. And then I remember being on Wall Street where the women were like in some cases bitchier than the men, honestly. And so I'm just curious because you are so kind-hearted and you show up as such a nice person, how you navigated bitch on wheels. You know what I mean? Like that, I know that's how we get people engaged. We just say it.
I think the women back then almost had to feel like they had to work 10 times harder to prove themselves, 10 times harder. And I think that, the way I look back on it now is I think they were thinking, well, we have to look strong and tough and this and that. And I have empathy for looking back now. I have empathy for kind of the maybe the roads that they were carving, which is hard. And I was just a minute behind them. But I think I navigated it by, probably just connecting with my friends and family, staying focused on why I'm in the industry. If I think back of my childhood self, and being in love with this industry literally my entire life. Oh my goodness. I have a picture of, I'm probably 3 at the time, and my older sister was probably 5. She had lost a tooth and probably got a dime or a nickel or something like that. I'm thinking the story goes, I was sad. And my parents were like, well, we can't give you money. You've got all your teeth, you know. So my mom set my hair in rollers, right? So not hot rollers, like the old fashioned rollers. I look like I won the lottery in this picture. I am so excited. I was thinking to myself, who cares about that nickel or dime? I'm going to have curls tomorrow, and this is the best day of my life. So I feel like there's never been one moment in my life that I haven't been, it's so true. I haven't been so enamored with our industry, buying fragrance in 4th grade with all my birthday money. Thinking, Monique, I thought the next day showing up at school, everybody would notice the gigantic difference in me because I'm wearing perfume now. So I remember walking into class thinking, people are going to turn heads. And of course, nobody did. Nobody noticed. But I was like, look at me, I'm wearing fragrance. So, begging my mom to, when can I wear makeup? Finally by age 13, I was allowed to wear makeup. I wasn't allowed before that. And, and just, so I think navigating the sort of hellions that we did for me personally, and I don't even know if I was conscious of this, is that I was so unbelievably grateful to be in the industry and have a salary and be surrounded by things that I have loved my entire life. That kept me, that passion for the beauty industry kept me happy and able to kind of look past as much as I could the challenges, and we still have challenges.
No, absolutely, absolutely. So what do you think, what is it that now as a leader and you're a senior leader, how is it that you're approaching the women in your industry as the ones coming up through the ranks? What is your MO? How do you not show up like the ones that showed up for us? Like,
Again, I think it comes back to shadow. We have a staff meeting every Friday. We start our staff meeting with appreciation. And I'll be honest, I learned that from a male boss, who began every single meeting that he had with his team with appreciation. And he is all about culture and all about wonderful things as well. So, it can be a little cricket sometimes when you're like, I'll start, here's what I appreciate. And my strategy for that is looking back at the week and remembering what are all the things that happened and who on the team do I need to be grateful for. But where the magic comes in is when the team starts, chiming in. They're grateful and appreciative of each other. And they say things like, hey, I want to really appreciate this person because, when I was out for the last 2 days, they took care of all this. Or I want to really appreciate, this person because they helped me here. So forging this culture of partnership, appreciation, gratitude, support. I think that's really important. And again, it takes effort. And I remember one time, probably 10 years ago, we needed to organize this library room at work. And I sent out an email, all hands on deck, let's get together. And I think everybody thought everybody else was going to show up, right? They thought, when you send out. So then I thought, well, I'm going to walk in there. And I walked in and literally like rolled up my sleeves. And then they're like, oh, wait a minute, we'll come and help and we'll come and help. So sometimes you have to be the one who is, doing all the work too. You have to show that you're not above anything, whether it is organizing products in a closet or, opening boxes and unpacking stuff. So we had a lot of boxes at work, launching all those SKUs. I think when you show that throughout your whole career, you're still a person who's willing to roll up their sleeves. I think that shows a lot. I hope that shows a lot, actually.
right. Yeah, it's clear. So you're very intentional about your culture.
Yes.
That shows up pretty well, I would imagine, with people wanting to work for and with you, no?
I hope so. I hope so. I mean, I also think not only, and that's one of the things that I say is like, I always want, if somebody says, hey, how should I like live my life at work? One of the things I say is be the person that you would want to work with and for, and ultimately you'll have, your own team and ultimately you'll support people. I think if you can be that person throughout your whole career, whether you're the entry level person, or, mid level or the senior level, I think you really need to do that and be intentional about it. And sometimes honestly, let people know this is what we're doing and why. Sometimes you have to be very descriptive about the intentions that you're doing so that people realize it's not just happening, all the time organically. Sometimes, yes, but often it is intentional. And so it does take work to do that.
So what is it that you think you've learned over the course of the last 20 years, 25 years, however many years we want to attach to it? What do you think you have definitively put in place in your life to keep this balance of I'm a badass at work, but I'm also a badass mom, and I'm going to be on that class trip, and I'm going to do all those things? Like, what is it that has Megan be intentional and organized?
I am still a list maker. I write with pencil every day, and my team knows this. And actually, these fabulous pencils, one of my team members gave me once because she knows how much I love how soft this, the graphite or whatever that's called is. So I feel like I write in pencil for two reasons. One, I prefer pencil, but two, it always reminds you that things can change because you can erase, right? So pencils represent a lot of things to me, including agility, and so I write in pencil and my husband teases me every single weekend. The first thing I do is I make my Wegmans grocery list and then I make my to-do list of everything I need to do. And it's very often the same things, laundry, iron, call my parents, dry cleaner. It's all the things I need to do. And then what are the sort of special things that weekend? And my husband said to me once, why do you write that every weekend? It's almost the same list. Two reasons. One, I think if I didn't write it, I might forget something. And two, I find great satisfaction in crossing something off. You know,
I love that. I
I,
absolutely love that. I used to write stuff down to cross it out because I would forget to write
right.
it and then I'd write it.
It feels so good. Done. Mission accomplished. It feels really, really good. Yes. So I think that, again, trying to stay organized, with that is a good strategy, and that's how I've balanced. And sometimes you're not feeling balanced, and then I'll pause and maybe take a really nice bath if you can. I'm a huge self-care person. I get facials on a regular basis. To me, it's funny, I had a facial the other day and I think I fell asleep twice, and I've been going to the same facialist forever. And I always apologize, and she's like, I love it that you're so relaxed that you're able to fall asleep during a facial. So between facials, massages, even just at home taking a nice bath. I'm a huge tea drinker. I love tea. Um, I still love magazines, and I still love to create vision boards out of real, like, tear sheets from the New York Times or from magazines. Visual person. All those things I think help keep you grounded when you're feeling overwhelmed, to kind of glance over at this vision board and say, I'm going to work on making that outfit happen for myself, or I'm going to work on booking that trip, or I'm going to work on doing something. I'm a big believer in kind of putting it out there, whether it's manifesting or, putting it in the universe or whatever. I think that helps you stay grounded when you're trying to do so many things.
Yeah. What's on Megan's vision board right now?
So what's on it right now? It's always a lot of fashion. It's always a lot of things that I find are beautiful outfits that I would try to replicate, in the best way I can. Sometimes it's hairstyles. I was thinking the other day for 2023, I'm like, maybe I should think about a new hairstyle. I'm not sure. A lot of times it's like little quotes and sayings and things like that. There's one that says, be the fountain, not the drain. I think, how do we think about, like, just wonderful things to glance at? I'm kind of peeking around right now. So it's beauty, it's fashion, it's travel, it's inspirational quotes. Oh, I do have one over here as well, too. Actually, I have something over here that is a list of brands that have been around for 100 years. And they have continually reinvented themselves while remaining true to their DNA. They're all fashion brands. And I think that's such a good reminder to not get stuck in your ways and to keep evolving. And whether you're within the brand, how do you keep bringing in new customers and remaining relevant and being exciting and being aspirational and making people happy and all of those kind of wonderful things. you know, some of these brands have been around for a very, very long time and they're still doing it. And I really respect that.
Hermes, Chanel, all those places. They're
You have two of them, Fendi, Gucci, Cartier, Givenchy. It's all these brands that have been around for a very long time.
pure. Yeah, absolutely. And it's sort of like us. Such a great analogy. We've been around for a long time, but there's, reinvention and being relevant it has to be part of the intentionality, I think.
Absolutely, because if you rest on your laurels and you don't see the world changing around you, it's very hard to regain relevancy. So I think, again, being intentional about staying relevant, being intentional about making sure that you are, up to date with the times. And here's the example where I have, my father as such a good role model. My father is 82 years old, has possibly a busier social life than many people. When he retired, he said to me, I'm one of five kids, and he said to me, I'm just going to say yes to everything. If there's a block party, I'm going to go. If there's a wedding, I'm going to go. He goes, because why not? Why not? And so he walks a few miles every single day. So he stays very active. He eats a very healthy diet. He has a good social kind of life. Now, I don't know if at the end of the day it was everything, but just the thought of being open to things, I think is important, especially, as people get older. He also is very up to date in technology and, believe it or not, even social media trends. I was home a couple weeks ago. I had my 40th high school reunion recently, which was amazing. It was so much fun. I shout out to everyone there. They were so wonderful. But my father had a new painting in his house that his brother had given him that was in his parents' house. My father's Italian, and it looked very Roman to me. I thought, oh, I'm going to ask my dad the Roman Empire question, that TikTok trend, right? So I say to my father, I said, Dad, I'm just curious. How often do you think about the Roman Empire? Here's my dad's response. Oh, I've heard all about that trend. I already know. How did my 82-year-old father be up to date with the TikTok trend on the Roman? I'm just,
Because he reads the Times. That's why.
yeah, no, it's amazing. It's so amazing. And he's,
Oh,
between
yeah.
his iPad and he's a private pilot and he still flies. And so
He still flies?
yes, he is a member of what they call the UFO, the United Flying Octogenarians. Now, you have to be in tip top shape, eyes, body, and I think it's one of the reasons that he keeps himself in really good shape is to make sure he can continue to fly. But with that, you keep your brain sharp, you keep your body sharp. But he also, he knows all these things. So I look up to my father in a huge way for that because I mean, I feel like my father has remained relevant for his entire life.
Well, is your mom still with us?
Yes, and my mom is very, very different type of a role model. My mom is a very, very tough cookie, and she has had a lot of things thrown at her life. Whether it's been health issues or just other types of things being thrown at her. But I got to tell you two things about my mom. She is strong and perseveres and is a tough cookie. I don't think I'd want to get across from my mom in a negotiation that I know I'm not going to win. Like my mom is a tough cookie, but she's also a master networker. Um, she could go into you know a restaurant and know nobody and come out best friends, invited back. She's just this person who is is comfortable and able to talk to everybody. And before the internet, my mom was your own personal Google. You could ask my mom anything, and somehow she found the answer without the internet. So two extremely different parents to look up to in very, very different ways, who have also been unbelievably supportive of my brothers and sisters and I. And we're all very, very different. Um, Supportive with encouragement, and our whole lives. And that's been the only thing I've needed is for somebody to say, you can do it.
That's awesome. That's really, really awesome. So, the expression is the gene pool has no lifeguards, and you've been very well served on a gene pool basis. So good, 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 good. And that brings me to my next question. And also, by the way, my mouth dropped open when your dad said say yes to more things because that is a pact that my husband and I made with one another 2 years ago. Say yes to more things. That's why we did the 6 weeks in Paris this year, and that's why we're going to do another time period in Madrid next year. And we're going to say yes to more because why not? We're on the shot clock right now, so we have to make it count. So, in as a segue, in terms of what is it that we think we want our next our graduating seniors, our kids that just graduated college and so on, what do we want to tell them that they first of all, I don't know that mine would listen to me. That's another conversation for a different day because I have a son who's the same age as me, but I don't know that he'd listen to me anyway. But what is it that we want to share with them now that would help them kind of launch in a more powerful way?
I think the first thing is hard work is still important and always will be important. Sometimes in my career, people have said to me, "You're so lucky," and I think, well, I also worked really hard. I was the first one in and the last one out. So I think that hard work will always, always be important. I think you can be both really strong and really kind. You don't have to claw your way anywhere. You can do that. I think also very importantly, be curious and be open. I don't know very many people that landed their dream job straight out of college. And, sometimes it can take, even a few years to land something and be really, really open, get your foot in the door, prove yourself, work hard, be intentional about making connections, respect and understand kind of where you are there. And then just, I guess finally, you can you can do what you want to do, but it might not be the straight shot up that you're thinking about, right? It might be zigzaggy. Two times in my career, I've actually taken a pay cut. Two times in my career, I went to the next, brand, and the title was lower, because titles at the end of the day can be very, very subjective and have very little to do with your actual scope and responsibilities. So you try to see the big picture, and work towards that. And I mentioned before, I did my MBA in marketing and had a laser vision, undergraduate and graduate, I'm going to work in marketing my whole life. And then at one point I was actually moved into product development, and I thought, my goodness, you're messing up my life, this is not where I was going, and I ended up falling in love with it. I ended up saying, who would know this is a job? Product development is amazing. And then through my career, whether it was at Lancome or on the different, at Calvin Klein or L'Oreal, sometimes marketing and product development overlapped a lot. And you did marketing type things in product development, PD. And when I was at Calvin Klein, you actually did both together. So I think that I still always had a little piece of that for a very, very long time. And so if they would have moved me and I would have said, this isn't what I want, and I quit and looked for something else, I wouldn't have had my same career. So you have to give it a shot, be open, be curious, get your foot in the door, be a good person, work really hard. And probably lastly, always go above and beyond. I think that people might want to say, well, I'm just going to just do the required. I saw the job description, I'm going to do the required. Right. And that's fine. And you're a solid 3 when you're doing that. But if you want to really kind of grow in your career, go above and beyond, take initiative, look around and see what needs to evolve, or look around and see what needs to be done. And it's not always glamorous things. Sometimes, again, it's reorganizing a closet, but sometimes it's creating either a better system or process. Sometimes it's facilitating something that needs to be facilitated. When you go above and beyond, even if you don't think people notice, people really notice. People really notice. And sometimes when you're above and beyond, it's out of your comfort zone. I was asked many years ago to do this 18-month thing with legal. And even though during, Fordham Business School, I loved the legal classes, I am not a lawyer by any stretch of the imagination. So I was so nervous through it, that I'm like, gosh, am I contributing enough? Am I saying the right thing? And it was a fabulous, huge learning experience. I was a little bit, honestly scared the whole way through, but also it felt really good because I could look back and be like, oh, I did that. I partnered with that person and I did that and we got it done, and it was game changing for the organization. And I feel really good about that. So sometimes you're going to be way out of your comfort zone, and that's okay. You're going to be okay.
Yeah, one of my friends in the book talks about giving yourself grace as you make the career pivots, because life is not, and mine too. Mine was not necessarily linear. I had to reinvent myself a couple of times. But ultimately, if you follow your heart and your gut, typically where you land is better than where you started.
That's right. And I think also, if for some reason it's not what you wanted, that's okay too. So I think there was one job I took once wasn't a good cultural fit for me. It was in the beginning until the larger parent company changed something, and then the entire dynamic shifted, and I was moved somewhere else. And that area that I was moved into wasn't the right fit for me. And I recognized that. And even though I had given it my all, I thought, this is not going to be the right fit for me. And it's okay. And try not to say, oh, what's my resume going to look like if I was only here for a year? It's okay. Sometimes you're going to have a moment like that, and to your friend's point, give yourself a little grace, move on, and go to the next thing.
All right. Well, my last question for you is what would you tell your 30-year-old self today if you could?
I think I would, it's such a good question. I didn't get my first corporate job until I was about 26. And again, being a woman, my first entry level secretary, right? And so, back then you could have all the same credentials as a man. He would start as a manager and you would start as a secretary sitting in front of his office, even though he's your same age and maybe younger and maybe went to your same school and maybe got worse grade, all of those things, right? I know. So my journey in the very beginning, I think I was thinking I was way behind my friends, and back then I remember when I was, about 26, getting my first corporate job, being a secretary, looking all around at other people that were higher than I was because they were either men or maybe they had connections or whatever the reason was. I don't know what the reason was. Then came in the flood of we got engaged and I'm like, okay, I have a boyfriend, not a husband. I'm, the secretary, I, went to school and, what is going on in my life? And then by the time I was 30, I think what I would tell myself is, it's going to be okay. Even though I felt back then, I was behind everyone. I really did. I thought, gosh, I'm behind every single person I know. I really wasn't. Everybody's journey is different. And mine was maybe slower in the beginning and then faster at other times. So I would tell my 30-year-old self, get ready. It's going to be amazing. You didn't waste time. Everything was there for a reason. Working in retail, I also worked for Bonwit Teller and Bloomingdale. I worked for all the B stores. So I think everything that I learned working in retail and department stores and with customers and with people, that grounded me in my entire career. All of that was so important. And people used to say to me when I got my jobs in retail, we thought you went to college. People can say very nasty things your whole life. Why are you doing that? It feels like you're going backwards. And even when I took that first corporate job and I was a secretary, people would say to me, sounds like you're taking a giant step down. You have to just get your thick skin and just keep your eye focused on your own self and career. Keep your eye focused. Try not to listen to, the naysayers and the negative people and the people that are trying to drag you down. It's hard to do because there's a lot of them out there. There's a lot of people that want to try to push you down a notch. But, I would tell my 30-year-old self, it's about to become amazing. Right?
Yes.
It's about to become so great because, your boyfriend's about to propose and, you're going to meet this woman, in business school that you adore, Linda. You're going to have this career that it's going to take you all over the globe. I've been able in my career to travel to, Japan and Korea and China and Germany and France and, Italy and all these amazing places with work. Like, I don't think my childhood self or even my 26-year-old self would have known that. So it's about to become amazing. Keep being a nice person on your way up. Keep being a good person on your way up. And even the people that told me, you smile too much. I'm like, seriously?
Hey, I want to leave you with something, Megan. Other people's opinion of you is none of your business.
Yes, you're right. I read that. You are so right.
Oh, it's so much fun. Oh my God, we could talk for hours. All right. So in the spirit of keeping my promise to keep these sessions at 45 minutes or less, and we're at 45 minutes, can you imagine? Oh, so much fun. So thank you for tuning in, everybody. I appreciate you. We love you. And stay tuned for the next episode of Possibilities with Monique DeMeo. Thank you, Megan Crokos. You're the
Thank
best.
you so much. Thank you. You too.
Thank you so much for listening to Possibilities with Monique DeMeo, where we unpack life as a female mover and shaker. If you like the show, please consider liking it, or better still, subscribing to it and leaving us a rating. It truly does help. Also, you can pick up my book, The 7 Secrets to Creating a Life You Love, a practical guide for women in leadership. You can find the book, other episodes of this podcast, and how to stay in touch at MoniqueDeMeo.com. DEMAIO. I look forward to seeing you again soon. With gratitude, Monique.